Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. All right, folks, let's get right into this extremely important case. So I'm going to talk about and going to walk you through the lawsuit that Governor Lisa Cook filed against the Trump administration and several other unexpected defendants. Okay, and I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to take this and break it down so that you can understand exactly what's going on with this woman. All right. Now, again, this case is really, really, really important. It's very important. I cannot stress how important this matter is. It could impact all of our finances, interest rates, mortgages, all kinds of things. And it could also just really negatively impact the economy. Hey, family, do you believe in the work we're doing? Does our content speak to you? Do you appreciate our in-depth legal analysis and political commentary from an African-American perspective? Do you believe it matters to our community? Then don't just watch from the sidelines. Please click that membership button and become a member of the 2% Club today. That's right, we need just 2% of our subscribers to become channel members. For just $4.99 a month, that's less than 20 cents a day, you'll help us keep creating powerful content that defends our democracy, demands justice, and develops a strong African-American community. But if you want more, at $9.99 a month, which is only 33 cents a day, you'll get access to exclusive members-only live streams, bonus content, and behind-the-scenes updates. And for just $14.99 a month, which is under 50 cents a day, our top-tier members get access to live Zoom calls, strategy sessions, and a direct voice in shaping this movement. We're not just building a YouTube channel. Folks, we're building a movement based on righteousness and justice, just what our community needs in a time of disinformation and division. So if you believe in what we're doing, click the membership button and join now. Become a member of the 2% Club today. Let's build something powerful together. Not just our economy here as a nation, but even the global economy. So trust me, this is really important. And I say that for several reasons. First of all, it's extremely important that the Federal Reserve remains independent of politicians, right? Politicians do not need to be pulling levers over the Fed, over the Federal Reserve Board. No, they do a host of very, very important things, including determining monetary policies and financial policies, and they need to do that independent of the whims of the politicians. And all presidents have certainly disagreed with Fed policies, no doubt about it, all of them, and have at times wanted them to lower interest rates or do something else. And I'm talking all of them, Obama, Biden, the Bushes, and so on. But Trump takes it further, as he often does. And he has gone further than any president in American history. So he went as far as firing a sitting Fed governor, Governor Lisa Cook, without cause, and is trying to manipulate the interest rates. And interest rates are connected to inflation. The lower the interest rates, that could absolutely cause inflation to rise. So lowering interest rates is inflationary. All right? So he recently fired Lisa Cook, right? And that is unprecedented. It has never happened in the Fed board's history. I did a video on this. You can go back and watch that video for the reasons that he ended up firing her. And in this case, she just happens to be the first black governor, female governor of the Federal Reserve Board. All right. And on top of that, she's probably more qualified than most, if not all of the other governors on the board. And you're going to see that as we walk through this lawsuit. And this is also critical because if Trump pulls this off, then we certainly will move well into authoritarianism. In fact, we could move into an autocratic government or even a dictatorial government. I'm not being hyperbolic. This is really, really, really big. All right. So let's go to another screen and let's look at and walk through some of this lawsuit. It is about 30-some pages. Obviously, we're not going through all of that. But there are parts of this lawsuit that every American citizen really need to hear and understand. So I'm trying to educate you, my audience, about this lawsuit. All right. So let's go and start walking through it here. So we see it's filed in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. Since the Federal Reserve Board is located in D.C., the D.C. Federal Court has jurisdiction over this matter. All right. And the president is there as well. All right. So she filed a complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. Now, what that means is she's asking the court to declare something and to enjoin or to stop something. All right. So again, a declaratory or injunctive lawsuit is where the plaintiff is asking the court to declare something. In this case, declare a number of things. We'll go through them in just a moment. And she's asking them to stop the government from doing something. We'll go through those as well. All right. So now let's start reading through this. So this says, on the evening of August 25th, 2025, President Donald Trump turned his social media account on Truth Social to state he had fired Federal Reserve Governor Lisa D. Cook. This followed his August 20th, 2025 call for her to resign based on nothing more than another social media posting, this one by Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, Director William Pulte, who has been using his office to allege mortgage wrongdoing against other public officials, now turning his sights to Governor Cook. The operational independence of the Federal Reserve is vital to its ability to make sound economic decisions, free from the political pressures of an election cycle. Very important. This case challenges President Trump's unprecedented and illegal attempt to remove Governor Cook from her position, which, if allowed to occur, would be the first of its kind in the board's history. It would subvert the Federal Reserve Act, FRA, which explicitly requires a showing of cause for a governor's removal, which an unsubstantiated allegation about private mortgage applications submitted by Governor Cook prior to her Senate confirmation is not. Now, by cause, what they're saying there is, what the lawsuit is saying is, or for cause, is that before the president could fire her, he certainly could fire her, and he did. The question is, was it for cause? In other words, was it for a legitimate reason or legitimate cause? And the president and his cabinet answers that affirmatively, that mortgage fraud is for cause. The problem is, she hasn't been indicted. And even if she were, there has not been a finding of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So this is mere allegations. That's all these are. This is an allegation. And so her attorney is arguing that this is not for cause. This is based on an allegation. If you're going to fire someone based on some reason, it should at least not occur until that reason has been proven to be true beyond a reasonable doubt. And people all over online saying that she should be fired because she committed mortgage fraud. No one has determined that. In this country, we don't take the word of the prosecutor. The prosecutor has to prove its case. We don't move on mere allegations, or we shouldn't. And if we move on an allegation regarding Miss Cook, Dr. Cook, in fact, then what about if it's you or someone you love? Do you want that person to lose their job, to go to prison, to suffer all types of consequences based on a mere allegation from some government official? Of course not. That's the problem here. So the president's actions violate Governor Cook's Fifth Amendment due process rights, meaning she has the right to go to court and to argue her case and to, allow a jury of her peers to determine whether or not she's guilty of the charges alleged, and not fire her just based on allegations. That's not the way we do things, folks. And we do have Fifth Amendment rights. And that's why you remember back with the what's his name? Kilgore case, Abrego, I can't think of the guy's name, but he was deported over to, was it El Salvador, I think? And me and others made a big fuss about that because we wanted the government to observe the Fifth Amendment due process. And that's why, because if we don't observe it for folks who are being deported, if they have a Fifth Amendment due process right, and they do, then the government can do it to anyone. And that was the whole point of that. So this is, I agree, a violation of Dr. Cook's Fifth Amendment due process rights and her statutory right, meaning her rights pursuant to certain statutes, to notice and a hearing under the FRA. Accordingly, Governor Cook seeks immediate declaratory and injunctive relief to confirm her status as a member of the Board of Governors, safeguard her in the board's congressionally mandated independence, and allow Governor Cook and the Federal Reserve to continue its critical work. All right, let's read some more. Now, I highlighted the parts of this that are most pertinent. So it goes on to say, Defendant Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System is the governing body of the Federal Reserve System and is headquartered in Washington, D.C. The board is an agency of the United States comprised of 7 members or governors serving staggered 14-year terms who are nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. The board is the board is sued. Now, this is interesting because not only did Dr. Cook sue Trump, but she sued the board and she sued the chairman, Jerome Powell. All right. Now, and they explain why here. The board is sued collectively, so everybody on the board is sued, and its governors are sued individually in their official capacity. So she sued the board, she sued it collectively, and she sued everyone on the board. And again, she sued Chairman Powell. All right. To the extent, and here's why she did it, to the extent that any individual governor has the ability to take any action to effectuate President Trump's purported termination of Governor Cook. So she sued them, although to my knowledge, they were not a part of the firing, but she sued them nonetheless because they may be called upon or they may have a duty to help Trump effectuate her termination. And so for that reason, she sued them also. All right. Okay, now let's go to the next page. This is really important stuff that we're about to read here. Since its establishment in 1913, Congress intended for the Federal Reserve System to function independent of political interference, as articulated by the Supreme Court in Wilcox v. Trump. That is a recent case. And the Supreme Court made it clear in that case that Trump should not fire people on the Federal Reserve Board for several reasons that we're about to read. In the Wilcox v. Trump case, the Federal Reserve, Supreme Court said, the Federal Reserve is a uniquely structured quasi-private entity that follows in the distinct historical tradition of the first and second banks of the United States. The intent that the Federal Reserve retain independence has been reinforced by statutory amendments to the FRA in 1935, 77, and in 2010. So the lawyer here is making the point that this has been affirmed and reaffirmed time and time again, that they want the Federal Reserve Board to remain independent. All right, so the Board of Governors is the 7-member governing body of the Federal Reserve System, made up of the chairperson plus 6 governors. All right, we're not going to go through that. Let's jump down to paragraph 9. An independent Federal Reserve is essential for a stable economy, as the short-term political interests of a president often clash with sound monetary policy. That is critical, right? The board, as I said earlier, needs to remain independent and not swayed by or coerced by the president, who is probably trying to achieve something in the moment that may not be good for monetary and financial policies, right? You don't want some charismatic or some dictatorial type of personality forcing the feds to do something that could mess the whole country up, even have global impact, as I said earlier. So the Federal Reserve Board's independence is really, really important. All right. Goes on to say presidents facing pressure to boost the economy may favor lowering interest rates and a more expansive policy to achieve a temporary economic lift. However, this approach often fuels long-term inflation. A politically insulated board of governors can make appropriate, albeit unpopular, decisions, such as raising interest rates to combat inflation, that are crucial for the nation's long-term financial health. So you see, it is important that the Fed Reserve Board remain independent, because it's an economic law that the lower the interest rate, that is, the cheaper it is to borrow money, then business corporations out there are going to do what? Raise their prices. They're going to inflate their prices. All right. So the Federal Reserve Board is there to try to maintain that balance. Okay. So lowering the interest rates. And by the way, I want them lower too. Who doesn't? We all want the interest rates to be as low as possible, but not if it's going to deleteriously impact the economy. And that could happen, again, if the feds lower the interest rate prematurely because of pressure from Trump. Then again, inflation could increase. And you all know how you are about inflation. When the prices of eggs go up and the prices of bread and milk and the prices of this and that increase, then you're going to be unhappy, right? You're going to be unhappy. So Chairman Powell, Governor Cook, and the others are trying to maintain that balance to keep the stability and the health of the economy strong. All right. All right, let's see where we go from here. Well, this case, let's look at this case because this is a really important case. Paragraph 15. In Humphrey's Executor versus United States and Weiner versus United States, the Supreme Court unanimously upheld the constitutionality of such statutory protections for government officials serving on multi-member agencies. In Humphrey's Executor, the court found that Congress has the authority to restrict presidential removals depending upon the character of the office. Specifically, 4 cause removal restrictions were deemed constitutional with respect to officers at the FTC. In reaching this conclusion, the court specifically relied on the FTC's structure as a body of experts, B, with long staggered terms, C, that was designed to be nonpartisan and act with crime impartiality. So he's making the argument there that the court has already decided and Congress has already decided that people who serve on certain boards cannot be fired except with cause. Okay? All right. I'm not going to read all of this. There are parts I do want to read. All right. I want to read this part. I want you to see how qualified this woman is to be on that board. All right, factual allegations. Governor Cook is a distinguished economist with a background in academia, policy, and research. She holds a PhD in economics from the University of California, Berkeley. So she is a Berkeley PhD graduate. This woman is highly qualified, highly educated. She studied economics to the highest degree in our country, and she did so at a distinguished university, UC Berkeley. Watch this. She received she holds a PhD in economics from the University of California, Berkeley, with a focus on macroeconomics and international economics. She received a BA in philosophy from Spelman College. She's an HBCU grad. Go, 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 HBCU. And then she went on to achieve these great things. As a Marshall Scholar, Governor Cook received a second BA in philosophy, politics, and economics from Oxford University, one of the most distinguished universities in the world, Oxford. Prior to her appointment to the board, Governor Cook was a professor of economics and international relations at Michigan State University, a research associate at the National Bureau of Economic Research, a member of the faculty of Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government, and a national fellow at Stanford University, among other economic positions. She served as a senior economist on the Council of Economic Advisors under President Barack Obama from 2011 to 2012. She was a senior advisor on finance and development in the U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of International Affairs from September 2000 to September 2001. She has previously directed the American Economic Association Summer Program for Disadvantaged Students from 2018 to 2021 and was elected a member of the American Economic Association's Executive Committee in 2019. On January 14, 2022, President Joseph Biden nominated Governor Cook to be a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. The Senate confirmed her nomination on May 10, 2022. Governor Cook officially began serving on the Board of Governors on May 23, 2022, filling an unexpired term that ended January 31, 2024. On May 12, 2023, President Biden renominated Governor Cook to the Board of Governors for an additional full 14-year term as governor, which doesn't end until 2038. Her nomination was confirmed by the Senate on September 6, 2023, and she was sworn in on September 13, 2023. Governor Cook's term ends on January 31st, 2038. Governor Cook is the first black woman to sit on the Federal Reserve Board in its 111-year history. And I want to make note of that because so many black people said Joe Biden and the Democrats never do anything for black people. I made a video not too long ago stating, and I reassert, and allege that Joe Biden was the most pro-black president since Lyndon Johnson. And all the stuff that he did for the African American community, from record high HBCU funding to record low black unemployment to record student loan forgiveness, record small business loans to black businesses, to record low black child poverty, to some of the first history-making first, such as the first black vice president, such as the first black female Supreme Court justice, the first black, as we see, person, female, on the Federal Reserve Board, and on and on and on and on. And yet you got a whole lot of black folks out here trashing the Democratic Party, despite all the Democratic Party has done for the black community over the last 80 years. All you got to do is just research and study. Don't get your information from online, not even from me. Fact check what I tell you. And I tell you right now, I'm not going to lie to you. I may make a mistake, but I'm not going to lie to you. But fact check me as well, and you'll see these are lies that are circulating about the Democrats and the Republicans being the same. Man, they have bent over backwards trying to help the African American community. I'm talking about the progressives in the Democratic Party. And as I've told you many times, I say all of that, and I'm not a registered Democrat. I'm an independent voter. But I know the facts. So, this woman with all of these qualifications know a whole lot more about whether interest rates need to be lowered or increased than Trump and a whole lot of other people. With all that education and all that experience, she's one of the most educated people on the board. And then just to fire this woman after all the hard work that she has put in, getting that PhD, that's hard work. That's at least 5 years or so studying. 2 bachelor's degrees, an Oxford scholar, all the experience she has. This is an injustice. And just as important, in fact, even more important, is the damage that it could do to the Federal Reserve Board and what it could do to our economy, both here at home and globally. So there's so much more in this lawsuit, but I wanted you to get the gist of what they're saying. All right? So thank you for watching this video. I am Reverend and Civil Rights Attorney Augustus Corbett. As always, stay woke.